Okay, session number 3, industry investment, changes and trends. And I hand the mic over to Ms. Janine Edwards, industry investor and owner of Sunset Homes, Anguilla. The mic is yours, Janine.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am Janine Castle Edwards, a proud CHTM 1994 graduate. I'm originally from Montserrat, but I've been living in Anguilla for the last 20 plus years since we had that iconic eruption, volcanic eruption that I'm sure you know about. So our firm, which is owned by my husband and I, we're Sunset Homes, and we develop properties in tourism. So we're very active in real estate, tourism, property development, and things of that nature. So we do this in Anguilla, which is our main headquarters, and a few of the neighboring islands. So definitely tourism is still my first love. I haven't abandoned ship. I'm delighted and consider it a distinct pleasure to reconnect with our CHTM family across geographical boundaries and graduating classes. So kudos to the organizing committee who's done all this work over the past year. And it's amazing that some of us who have never even met share this unique bond and thread of what it means to be a CHTMite. So this conference is allowing us to share and collaborate with some of the brightest and best creative minds in our region, the tourism industry and beyond. And as a Caribbean people, even across the centuries, we are known to be some of the most culturally diverse, dynamic, and resilient people in the whole world. We have rebounded from so many disasters, whether it's natural, man-made, and now we're faced with this pandemic. So key attributes that we need to tap into right now in this COVID era would include agility, innovation, flexibility, tech savvy, and collaboration. So today we are fortunate to have 3 of our most dynamic powerhouses in the region, panelists who will share their insight on investment changes and trends, the impact of technology, and small business survival. So hold on to your seats. You're in for a real treat this afternoon. And without further ado, I'd like to invite our very first presenter. He is none other than Keith Lee Robinson, originally Jamaican, and now he's practicing in the USA. And I'll tell you a bit about Keith Lee. He's a global business and innovation technology leader who leverages technology to transform business cultures, to build sustainable value, drive scalable growth, and create an environment of continuous improvement. Since graduating from CHTM in 1990, Keith has developed into a strong cross-industry and cross-functional leader who can successfully drive end-to-end business transformation with impact spanning multiple lines of business globally. Starting out as an IT manager at Siboney Resort in his hometown, Jamaica, Keith now leads a global IT organization in the biotech industry, such a pertinent industry right now, in his current capacity as Senior Director of Global IT at Repligen Corporation, which is headquartered in Boston, USA. So Keith, a very warm welcome, and we invite you.
Thank you, thank you.
We invite you to share some of your wonderful experiences and insights. So we'll do this as a bit of a question and answer session. And we'll start with, I know that you're involved in a lot of business travel right now as a global IT organization. Are you traveling at the moment?
Well, first of all, thanks, Janine. It's a pleasure being here. Ironic, I've been asked to open the baton here. I've never, can't say I've done that ever in my life, but here. Here we go. Here we go. Yes. So,
are you traveling
as you were
right now?
saying, well, I'm in Boston right now. I traveled this week though. So I have not been in the hotel industry as when I graduated in 1990 since 95. But since I am a customer, so I'm in touch in that regard. So if I've been traveling recently, I've been doing a little travel since the lockdown, but not as much as I used to do. And yes, so I've been doing some travel. What I've noticed in the travel that I've been doing is a few things that you see from a technological perspective is a low touch. When you book your flights online, you come to the hotel. Nobody wants to touch anything that you have, so you have to check in on your phone. You get through TSA. You get on a plane, and the planes these days feel like private jets because there are so few of you on there. So you have a real nice experience. I'm enjoying that right now, much to the dismay of the airline industry, but as a customer, we're enjoying that. Now, you land and you get to, no, for the last 2 years, I haven't been renting cars when I travel on business because you use Uber, it's so convenient. But because of COVID now, I don't want to be in a car with anybody else or take public transportation. So you're back renting cars and all of that. So then you get to the hotel and it's very low or no service. I mean, you check in online from your phone. You just pick up your keys. You get to the room and you get zero service if that you only request it if you request it. So that's what I'm seeing in the US. I was in Jamaica as well. I did a little staycation, and even at all-inclusive resort, the level of service, of touch service, has been reduced. But that's what I've been doing. I can tell you what I have not been doing. Usually I would be traveling to a lot of industry conferences. You know, I would be traveling to. I run a global organization in Asia and Europe and the US, several sites, like 15 sites in all. And usually I'll get around to these sites and meet face-to-face with people, and I'm not doing that anymore, but that doesn't mean that I'm not meeting face-to-face with them, because I do that even probably more often than I did before. Not spending as much time at the headquarters doing FaceTime with, you know, the hubbubs of the organization and stuff like that. We're in biotech, a real busy industry these days. But I'm not there. I spend a month at a time in Jamaica now, which is wonderful because you work from home. You do everything that I would do in Boston or anywhere else I can do from Jamaica. So that is a big plus for me and for my family. And in a couple of months when it gets super cold here in Boston, that's certainly where I'll be, and nobody will complain because they know I'm productive. With regards to conferences and stuff like that, I usually am like 3-4 conferences, industry conferences, technology industry conferences. I mean, the big ones from all the big players. I have attended them, but not in person. This weekend, I was supposed to be at a college reunion in the Bahamas, but here I am. So that's what I have been doing and have not been doing. But technology is enabling it, nevertheless.
Awesome. So tell us how some of these will impact the Caribbean tourism as we know it. And we as practitioners in the Caribbean, what should we be looking towards in terms of embracing this technology so that we can survive and indeed thrive?
Yeah, but before I could say how it's impacting the technology, I would just go from what I'm seeing now to what I know will happen as far as technology is concerned. So what I know will happen is that we'll see certain things that we have been seeing in the last 5 years, and just in some niche hotels that some chains that, you know, they want to specialize in all of that. But number one thing, it's gonna be from low touch to no touch, from booking, checking in, you know, getting your keys. I mean, you can open your hotel door with an app these days, so you know there's no need to touch anything. I remember 2 years ago I was staying at a hotel in Amsterdam. It's called Citizen M. There is a whole chain, and there was no humans. I mean, there are humans standing by if you're having challenges. And I found it amazing. I was like, man, and I took a picture of it and I posted it. And the comments that I got was like, who would want to do that? I like the humans, you know, I want to talk to a person. And I was like, well, I was in and out of that reception room in 5 minutes. and I was up in my room, you know, so that you're going to see a whole lot of that happening in the front office and the back office. So you're gonna see a lot of no touch there. Automation will be more acceptable, and when I talk about automation, it's not just process automation in the back office, but yes, robotics. You're gonna see a lot more of that in the front office for delivery service, because you could, if you just imagine it, is there a reason why a human have to bring you your food when you ordered it online? When GPS technology is as such that it will find your room without any exception. It will find your room. It will notify you that the food is there. The food will be warm when you open it with the app on the phone, and it will then move back to where it's supposed to be. Things like if you walk in a hotel floor every day, you see these housekeepers with the carts pushing it around, and housemen, or in the Caribbean you still have housemen who assist the housekeepers. With automation, you could have robotic things that to pick up these garbage and use linen and stuff like that, and take them to the centralized areas. So you're going to have a lot of that coming through in conference room areas, and for the few conferences that will happen, you'll have more and more robotic delivering stuff and all of that. So be prepared for that. Other things that you will see, like things like VR and IoT, which is virtual reality and the Internet of Things. Virtual reality is where you'll get that a lot before you travel, where you try it before you buy it, where you totally immerse yourself into that experience. So, for example, you're selling a resort in the Caribbean. You could offer it a virtual reality tour of it, and you can really, if for those of us who have experienced virtual reality, there's no difference between, apart from the touch and your feet in the sand. You'll definitely be able to experience it. And the Internet of Things are really to control HVAC systems and stuff like that with using your mobile device. And the last thing I want to say is that the end result of all of this is the utilization of this by the players, the hoteliers and stuff like that, with artificial intelligence. And the main ingredient of artificial intelligence is data. And if you're asking the guest to now provide data at every touch point or no touch point, because you're not touching it anymore, then you're going to have a whole lot of data. And with predictive learning and stuff like that in artificial intelligence, you will be able to differentiate yourself by all of this data. You're going to mine this data and to be differentiating yourself from the competitor. So these are the things that I predict will happen. And to answer your question, JD, about how I see this affecting the Caribbean, well, technology, in my opinion, is a great equalizer, right? So small properties and small industries, and I know we're all going to talk more about this later, would be able to compete better. I mean, one of the biggest hotel chains right now is a technology company. It's called Airbnb, but which all of these smaller properties can participate in. So, and all of this technology that I spoke about before are affordable. They're not as there used to be. Just you have to be a big property with a lot of capital to take advantage of these things. I mean, the technology I'm talking about is not new. I mean, I learned about artificial intelligence when I did my master's degree in 99. So it's just mature now, and because it's now 2020 and no longer 1999, it is cheap, and you can do a lot with very little. So a small property can do a lot to compete and for the same guest that's going to go to the larger properties. So that what I see will happen. The larger properties now are the ones going to be taking advantage of the automation, the robotics and all of that, all that good stuff. So that is what I see happening.
They're very interesting. I guess COVID-19 has pushed us kicking and screaming very rapidly into a more technological world. And there are some concerns being expressed on the chat. Tourism has been basically a very high-touch, human-intensive operation. And most of our employment in the Caribbean likely is linked to tourism, whether directly or indirectly. So the technology you're speaking about, you're sharing a spotlight on, will bring lots of gains and opportunity. However, also we will have to retool, we'll have to reimagine ways to employ our people. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Most definitely, and yes, yeah, we have to retool because it's a high touch, people-centric industry, and it's going to move a little away from that. Because I have a mantra that I have up in my office in headquarters here in Boston, that if it can be defined, it can be automated. So if you come to work and do something, the same thing every day, I can write a program to get rid of you. So what you're going to have to do is to retool yourself. And it is like, and I mean, this is a university reunion, so we're going to have to talk about that. And even when the subject comes up about, the relevance of CHTM and whether it should exist or not, it should exist, even just for the fact to turn out people to allow the technology to flourish and to allow companies to compete and stuff like that. So yes, the people working in the industry, they will have to retool because, I mean, the new term is the new normal. I don't think because it's not normal. It's going to be something that we don't work. Yeah, it's going to be the other thing. So that is what we have to retool and utilizing some of the things that Olivia was talking about this morning. We have to spend this downtime to retool ourselves. And prepare for what is coming.
Right. I know the early adopters would have embraced a lot of this technology. How soon do you predict this will happen in the Caribbean? Because we have a lot of small, businesses, small properties. So how do you, what do you see for the Caribbean in terms of when it will be accepted, embraced, and practically feasible?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to be immediate because, I mean, it is either you adopt or you die, right? So they have this downtime now where nobody's coming to the Caribbean, and you have this facility that you're incurring fixed costs and all of that stuff that you have to keep going. Now, this is the way to keep going. So, I mean, you have to accept that this is how you're going to compete. You're going to have, if you're not on Airbnb, even for a small, even for hotels, if you have, I mean, that's the easiest way to get some of this technology. You have to reach out to your technology leaders in the Caribbean to say, all right, how can I get no touch, how can I have keyless entry and stuff like that? It is not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10-year-old technology that, that is now affordable for smaller players in the industry to take advantage of.
Wonderful. That was so insightful, Keith Lee. Thank you so much. So we'll come back to you a little later with questions. But now we want to welcome Dave Cameron from Infiniti Capital, Jamaica. And Dave is another JA man. He graduated from CHTM in 1992. And he has more than 25 years experience in progressive professional experience in the financial industry, including being the vice president of the Manufacturers Merchant Bank Limited, overseeing significant financial assets and portfolios. Dave has supported the successful start of the Daring Bunting and Golding Limited Foreign Exchange Trading Unit. In addition, he headed a team to launch Sterling Investments Limited and was very instrumental in assisting the firm to double their capital within 3 years. Dave has also worked directly in the hospitality industry, supervising over 100 staff, and he implemented initiatives to increase revenue at Dunn's River Falls. Our well-rounded panelist has extensive work experience in sports management, being a member of the West Indies Cricket Board from 2002 to 2019, serving in various capacities before heading to be the president of the organization from 2013 to 2019. Welcome, Dave.
I thank you very much, Janine, and very good afternoon to all the panelists and the persons who've gathered here. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have been doing this in person in the Bahamas, but hopefully we'll get there next year. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join with you all today. Currently, what I'm doing, I just point this out here. I'm actually CEO of a private equity firm as well, called Alliance Investments, which is a St. Lucia entity. And interesting, you know, when we started it a year ago, we didn't expect COVID, obviously. But one of the things that we do is actually we buy life insurance policies. It's called, in the business, it's called life settlements. And I'm not sure if most of you have ever heard of it. It's akin to what we call a reverse mortgage. So what happens is that you have a life insurance policy, obviously, maybe 20, 30 years, you get to be 65 and over, or maybe 60. You don't need insurance policy anymore. Or in COVID times, for example, a lot of persons can't afford it, and otherwise would like to have the cash, or you simply just, you need cash. You approach a broker, and the brokers will then come to firms like myself, and we will assess the value of the policy and your what we call life expectancy, and then we would then purchase the policy. There's a little more that goes into it, but essentially, it's an interesting company, because when we started a year ago, we didn't think that mortality potentially could increase in this way. We weren't looking at all the other asset classes. We're looking at all the other asset classes and saying we felt that most of the asset classes had peaked. And so therefore we felt that this was a great play to be in. I just mentioned that because, you know, just to say that as we go forward, we're going to create new industries. We're going to create new things, as Keith just pointed out. Interestingly, Keith and I I also have a background in IT. I didn't work in there, but I actually did a bit of, I have a degree in IT. And I just want to say this to everybody on the call, that if you were born in 1900, by 1914, you'd have had the First World War, and you'd have thought that maybe we will never survive this. Then by 1918, we had the Spanish flu, and you're only 18 years of age. And by 1930, we had the Great Depression. And 1939, we had a Second World War. And every time we had one of these catastrophes, pandemic, wars, whatever, the world has gotten better, and we've just adapted and done things differently. So as Keith has pointed out, what we're gonna find is investment in different areas. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is, Keith mentioned travel and tourism. I believe travel and tourism at the levels, travel to the levels pre-COVID will probably return in about 18 months. What we're seeing in the United States, there's an article actually came out, Bloomberg, yesterday, no, sorry, the day before, the 1st of October, that persons in New York City are renting their homes and going on vacation, pretty much travel and work from their cars and living in different cities. Now, are we gonna see that extending into across borders? Possibly. I'm actually in the grill as we speak, and I met a person here that's been here for the last month that has been working remotely and vacationing. That's what I see going forward. And so for your small hotels, your large hotels, is tourism, or are your hotels going to be extinct? I believe not. We're going to get back there. But for the small hotels, and I think we have another speaker coming right after me, we're going to have to modify our rooms, our accommodation, and Keith mentioned it. So now for your vacation hotels, you need somewhere for people to actually work as well. We're going to see longer stays. Barbados has now given a 1-year offer to persons coming there who want to work from Barbados for a year. They haven't rolled out exactly what the incentives will be, but they're saying if you have to go through all the protocols every time, why not come and stay for a few months and work from there? So those are some of the trends in my mind that you're going to see in the investment world. There are going to be a lot more opportunities. Yes, some hotels, I believe, are going to go under. There'll be an opportunity for consolidation for some of them, the brands, etc. And like I said, there's always going to be opportunities post this pandemic.
Yes, definitely we're seeing a blurring of work and vacation lines. Even for us as professionals, you know, we've had to jump in and out of the office according to the different protocols that are obtained at the time. But as you say, great flexibility for travel and for being productive online.
Yeah, one of the things Keith touched on, and we spoke about less persons being employed in the hotels. And as we now have to retool ourselves. And if we think about it, while there are less persons employed in the hotel industry, for example, and as we retool ourselves and different industries, that means more people have time to travel. Okay, again, I just spoke about the 1900s, and what we're seeing is increasing wealth. Wealth has not declined. You look at the stock market, what's happening. There are companies, the technology companies are booming and will continue. There's a data company, Keith spoke about that debuted last week at $142. It opened at $245 trading. And so what you're going to see is that all of these persons are getting wealthier every day. What are you going to do with their downtime? So again, tourism and travel will continue. Keith mentioned about the conventions. Keith, I believe in another year and a half, we'll be back to having physical conventions. But these physical conventions, again, I believe are going to be longer and larger because you now have the opportunity to probably take your families while you can work from, just after the conventions, etc. So I believe that we will see a bigger travel industry on the other side of this and tourism as we go forward.
Definitely. Even as you mentioned that in Anguilla, we are promoting a digital nomad program. I guess it's similar to Barbados. And there are a number of things we have to look at that we don't look at for normal tourism. For example, schooling, people coming and setting up bank accounts, There's so many other concerns that relate to residential tourism. So we as tourism practitioners need to see the trends in the market and adapt our product to suit. I know that many of our hotel rooms are not really set up for long stay. They may not have self-catering facilities, So all of these things we have to look at, not only in terms of marketing, but sort of adjusting our product.
Correct.
Right. So what will be the impact in investment in your mind between commercial and residential investment in the hospitality industry?
Well, I think, again, we're going to see, my view is that the straight business hotels will probably be challenged. Again, simply because I believe they're going to have longer stays. And so therefore persons will be wanting to vacation while they work. And so I believe the challenge is New York, for example. I've seen in a research somewhere that obviously the hotels in New York in particular are struggling, simply because all of Wall Street is now living in Florida. Most of them have moved down there, much better climate, obviously. and they can actually operate from where they are because of technology. And so we in the Caribbean, I believe, will continue to see an improvement in our tourism product, but we're going to have to redevelop in order to be able to facilitate longer stays and while you can vacation where you work.
Right. I predict that this would have some impact on our human resources. For example, if you're coming to vacation for a week, the level of service required would be a lot more than if you're living there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, we spoke about services, and Keith made an extensive talk about that. All our services now are pretty much remote. So again, government of Jamaica, the new government just announced last week the Prime Minister in his swearing-in ceremony that one of the things that he's doing in Jamaica is upgrading our superhighway. So now we're ensuring that once you get to Jamaica, all of those services that you may need, you'll be able to purchase. And of course, everybody knows about 5G. I have my own views on that. Keith may or may not agree with me. People have said that 5G is like sticking your head in a microwave. And obviously we all understand what that means, but we will see exactly the impact of that. But your services are really, most of them now you will be able to get online.
Yeah, very, very interesting insight. So we really, as Caribbean people, need to look ahead because the trends are there, so we need to prepare ourselves to really leverage those. So thank you so much. We'll get back to you later with a few questions. I see some questions brewing up here. But first, we'll welcome our third speaker. And this is one of my classmates, Rollocks. He is from Trinidad and Tobago, and he is operating a company called VisionWorks. So let's tell you a bit more about Rawle and what he's doing right now. Well, Rawle is a proud CHTM graduate. He's the founder and chief impact coach at VisionWorks, based in Trinidad. He's been in the field of management consulting and business consulting for over 20 years in a range of sectors, inclusive of tourism, education, retail, finance, energy, and the public sector. He's passionate about human development and has significant experience in organizational development with a strong emphasis on change management as essential to business success today. So we know that change management is in high focus right now. We're in high gear for that. Rawle is particularly interested in assisting indigenous institutions who have a regional and global vision. He's a serial entrepreneur himself, so he's been in the trenches and has worked and participated in a number of local, regional, and international SME initiatives. Welcome, Rawle.
Hello, Janine. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists, and good afternoon to the CHTM team out there. Such a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Let's delve in and talk a bit about small business survival tips in this COVID-19 era, because we know most of the Caribbean, the backbone is, lots of small business, entrepreneurs, even mom and pop stores and shops and tourism services. So you have a lot of hands-on experience with this. So let's chat a bit about the nature and the scope of some of the challenges that you see facing these small and medium-sized enterprises at the moment.
Yes, certainly, Janine. Thank you very much. It's one of those topics that it's very close to my heart. When I graduated in 1994 and came back to Trinidad and Tobago, of course, I did the tourism management degree and couldn't find a job. At that time, employers weren't making the distinction between whether you had a sociology and management degree or you had finance management or you had tourism management. So I sought out entrepreneurship and started a tour company actually back in the 90s. And I've had several of these types of tourism-based organizations through the years. So this has really helped me survive. So it's something very close to my heart. But when we talk about the topic of SMEs, the first issue we have here is a definition. What is an SME? And I'm not sure if some of the more academically inclined graduates here have information on it, but it's one of the challenges we do face. How do we define it? And there are various definitions out there as to the number of staff and the size, the revenue base, and so forth. But that notwithstanding, I think it can be argued that the SMEs are the real drivers of the tourism industry and account for over 80%, right, of the enterprises within the sector and 45% of the jobs regionally, all right? Some would say between 40 to 50% of the region's GDP. So we're talking about a massive footprint here. Notwithstanding all of that, there are challenges that come with the SMEs. Many are informal, no legal footprint, no tax footprint, the purchasing power is weak. Quite a lot of them are undercapitalized. So this whole issue of being able to borrow, being able to access funding, all these are real challenges that the SME sectors would also face. Now, another issue here, and this goes to Keith's point about being able to adapt to technology, there is still a high level of illiteracy as well. If you span the range of SMEs that are out there, and this will pose some challenge in adopting technology, even though I would say that as an SME, you do have to survive every day. So the whole question of business survival existed even before COVID. Nonetheless, COVID has brought new challenges. So all these things combined make it challenging to access a lot of funding that's out there. And we'll talk about that a little later, as well as being able to delve deeper into the advantages that technology will bring.
Yes, I think the small and business enterprise setup is a lot more vulnerable in these times.
Certainly.
So we look forward to hearing some more. But what's the role of government, you think, Rawle, in assisting the SMEs at this time?
Well, the government is the primary mover, and they play a critical role in providing the right climate and attracting the much needed investment into the sector, all right? As we would have seen across the Caribbean, there have been various approaches from entrepreneurial relief grants to SME stimulus loans. You have a lot of individual support too, whether that's helping you with your income, food support, rental support, moratorium on loans, property upgrade and refurbishment. Quite a number of attempts have been made to help out these SMEs. Sometimes people have been given tax breaks. In other cases, wages to help pay workers, all right? In some regions, we also saw care packages being given out to employees, okay? So those are some of the things that government has been doing. Be that as it may, we don't have the numbers yet. There's still quite a number because of their informal nature. They have not been able to access some of these programs that the governments have offered.
Very interesting indeed, but there is a strong role for the government indeed in these times. So what can SMEs do to respond to the challenges being posed by the pandemic?
Well, I think the first thing is the mindset, all right? We have to have the right mindset, and anyone in the sector, in the SME sector or seeking to get into it, you must have the right mindset. Of course, health and safety is a priority. Your health is your wealth, all right? You have to be frugal. You have to be focused. You have to spend some time on becoming more credible, especially if you're going to be accessing finance. Did you have a question?
Charmaine, would you please mute? Charmaine Dean.
Okay, great. You have to be open to partnership, be informed, and of course, be positive, all right? And just to give an example, some persons may not realize that quite a number of things have happened coming out. Dave mentioned the issue of how do we respond to crisis and the various things that have happened over the years. And quite a number of organizations that we do know today have evolved from recessions. For example, the 1958 recession saw the opening of the Hyatt Hotel. The first Burger King restaurant opened amidst the Korean War recession in the 1950s. The Great Recession, 2007, 2009, that actually saw the creation of startups like Uber. even Airbnb that we spoke about earlier. So understand that these things are possible, have the right mindset, okay? In the near term, we have to strip to the essentials. Review your value chain, review your business processes, cut out all the excess fat, and you have to get lean and mean. Of course, do not stop marketing. Make the most of your current customers. Reformat your marketing plan to keep your loyal customers on board. In fact, there's one thing that the pundits have been talking about called COVID marketing. You have to be sensitive in all your optics to recognize the psychology behind it and introduce all the messages that say to your clients that we have put things in place for you. All right? So these are some of the things that can be considered. Keith touched on the whole issue of digital tourism. It's certainly something that is going to be on the rise, and you have to also prepare for that. Lastly, I'd like to say, and this has been said throughout the discussion so far, that the need for collaboration is great if we are to survive. Organizations can team up. One of the organizations that I work with, a small tourism accommodation organization here in Trinidad, they've been able to bring these 1 to 22 room accommodation facilities together to do marketing. So they've been able to save on cost. There are other ways by teaming up you can save in terms of being able to access cheaper raw material or on better terms. All those are the things you can do. One of the creative responses that I've seen is even bartering. So take, for example, you have a caterer that needs to do and beef up their social media. They can trade meals for social media support. So these are all some of the things that they can do to survive.
Those are some great hands-on practical ideas. And I know we have implemented some of those ourselves in Anguilla. We've seen the rise of staycations, you know, targeting local markets. And as you say, cash is a little hard to get right now. So bartering is king again.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Yes,
ideas.
yes.
Absolutely. Some incentives as well.
My clients have used it effectively.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, we want to take a look at some of our participants who are looking on outside here. We have somebody who's contributing a lot to the chat and he has his hand raised. We want to welcome Terence Rojas and ask him to unmute and share his contribution on the topics.
Okay, unmuted and video. Great discussion, fantastic contributions from everyone. My intervention is around the expectation of service under the new conditions that we are facing. Keith referenced it. I believe Rawle referenced it. And my view is that service is a signature element of Caribbean tourism. That's, you know, people come to the region because they want that feeling of luxury. In the post-COVID-19 era of Caribbean tourism, I feel there's an opportunity to reposition the service experience. What I would love to get from the panelists is where do we see that those opportunities for service repositioning may exist? What is the possibility to re-engineer in a post-COVID era with a more meaningful positioning of service?
Well, Terence, it's great to hear you, man. Yeah, but could you just define what are those services you call luxury services that the Caribbean offers that's different from other destinations?
Good follow-up. I think it's all about that feeling of personalization. The human component of the Caribbean industry delivers the product in a very unique way that forms the experience, the basis of what the positive experience turns out to be. Okay, whether that experience has been developed from point A up to a peak, or if it's intercepted at some challenge and corrected and then allowed to proceed to a higher level of appreciation. So it is more than just bringing the food to the table. It's more than just the invisible parts of service delivery, okay? As Keith pointed out, there are sufficient technological systems and solutions in place that could effectively replace the human component, okay? I believe he referenced housemen assisting housekeepers with the physical aspects, and yet we see evidence and we see practice of mechanized or technology supported systems that will allow your rooms to be serviced, your meals to be delivered, various other services to be ordered and delivered, okay? Case in point, Singapore has a sort of a mobile tour buddy. You're in the system, you have a mobile phone, it will guide you around the city, okay? The risk I feel to the Caribbean tourism product is that with the necessary and important introduction of post-COVID coping mechanisms by way of technology, we may be removing vital aspects of the service culture, the service expectation, and indeed the tourism experience. And so we should reposition, okay? If we don't, then what makes us any different from another more capable destination with where these destinations are certainly a lot more accessible than the Caribbean at present, okay? So do we have that opportunity, and where do those opportunities lie?
So Terence, if I may, so yeah. So what I see happening is that, yes, there will be technology and more of it. However, whatever the Caribbean people are great at is the hospitality aspect of the hospitality industry, right? The service, providing that service. So the things that are gonna go away are the mundane things, like, you know, to check your in, to check your out, to take your order, for like room service, stuff like that. But when a person is on vacation, trust me, they don't want to deal with a robot. They want to be on vacation being served. So that aspect will not go away. We have to, where we have fallen over the years is that, as I said, since 1995, I've been a customer. I've not been working in a hotel. So I've seen where the service levels have been dropping. It has now to increase because people can go anywhere, and the things that you usually have a job to do, I mean, it may not necessarily be available to you anymore. So that aspect of the service has to be more important, and that is where the management and ownership of have to concentrate on, because that is going to be one of the more important aspects of the offering.
So what you're seeing is that you probably will have less persons delivering the service, but they need to be better at what they do. Correct.
Could I add something here? I think we need to also consider that a lot of these things here we cannot map, all right? And we need to reimagine, to add a Rita Olivia's list of reads she mentioned before. So some of the things that will emerge, we really don't have an idea. But one of the things that generally is true, as digitization takes place, it does free up opportunities for more hands-on type services that are customized. So there just may be a boom in some other areas that we don't anticipate. And I think as graduates, as people in tourism, is for us to peer ahead to begin to develop these modalities, just like the people at Airbnb did how many years ago. So I think there may be more opportunities coming up, Terence, for that service delivery.
Okay, anything else, Terence? Thank you so much for that important contribution. That's it for you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're looking at the merging, so to speak, of the digital industry and the tourism industry, where service will be redefined. Some things will be taken over by automation, right? Do you think in the Caribbean we are up to speed with the infrastructural backing to do this, and also the human resource training? Are we equipped to move in this direction?
Well, I can't comment on how equipped we are. I think the infrastructure is there. I mean, as I said before, I'll go to Jamaica and I'll stay a month and I'm productive. So the infrastructure is in all over the Caribbean is there. You have good internet, good fiber optic is all through the Caribbean. You know, so you can compete digitally because of the infrastructure. In terms of the human resources being ready for it, I cannot comment on it because I'm not like in the industry there. What I will say though is that it has to, and part of what we have to be doing, even at the university, is to prepare people for it. In the university, I mean, my first introduction to computers was at CHTM. I mean, that's where it all started. We have to now evolve from there to be developing program, because even when we talk about programming or writing codes, I mean, usually that is concentrated in like a software engineering degree or stuff like that. But the software engineers that are creative and do well are people who know what the industry that they're doing. So if you have students of hotel and tourism management that understand the industry and they can code, they will be more creative than just an engineer who can code.
All right. We had a question earlier. Oh, Rawle?
Yes, I wanted to add, I think from an SME perspective, there's still a lot more work to do because many SMEs cannot access a lot of the funding that's being made available. One of the trends that is going on globally is the emergence of an impact investment sector. An impact investment focuses on sustainable type businesses that have social impact or environmental impact as a priority. Already that is about $715 billion sector. And I think it's something that is fledgling in the Caribbean, and there's a lot more we can do, which this will include areas of angel investment, venture capitalism. There's quite a lot that we can do to help the SME sector to manage the challenges ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention on the infrastructure side, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that the government of Jamaica has realized and has said that they need to invest more in certainly technology. So yeah, we've done a lot of work in the last couple of years on our major highways, etc. But they've now figured, especially post-COVID, that they have to invest in the technology. And there are some quite a bit of incentives for small businesses as well. But I'd like to touch on something Rawle mentioned, that in this period, we're going to see a lot of consolidation, mergers, partnerships, whatever, have to be the order of the day, Rawle, in order for some of these companies to be able to access the funding and the opportunities that are available going forward.
Excellent. Okay, let's take a look at data security in the Caribbean, because since technology is growing in importance as a very foundation of our business survival, what are your thoughts on where we're at in terms of data security and where we need to get to? I open it to anyone.
Well, as far as data security is concerned, it should be paramount to everything that we're doing. We're talking about digitization and everything. We're collecting data. And if we're collecting it, therefore, the things that are going to make you better is, what's going to make you vulnerable as well. So, I mean, you have to secure it. But there are easy ways to do that. I mean, Caribbean people shouldn't be worried about data security or investing in it because there are infrastructure available. It's in the cloud that if you just put your data there, it will be secured. I mean, you cannot afford to pay like a data security analyst or to hire a CISO to protect your data and allow the people who know how to do these things to do it. And you pay a nominal fee for it, and your data will be secure. So I don't see that as an issue. I think if it is an issue, it's one of education that people just need to be aware.
Wonderful. So we have some interest on the chat about funding, and we know that in this COVID era, funding is even more challenging. So I don't know, Rawle, if you want to delve a bit more into some of these challenges and some of the creative ways businesses can overcome, because we need now to invest more in technology, in regrouping, new marketing. So we need funding, and we haven't had funding for many months as our sector has practically closed. So can you speak about this a bit more?
Yes, I think Dave touched on it earlier, and that would be one of the major recommendations, especially if we're talking about the SMEs, who would be the majority of the organizations in the sector. So definitely collaboration, grouping together to access any type of advantage. That could be to access funding, that could be to do marketing, that could be to cover expenses. Sometimes even housing together. Some businesses cannot pay rent. So if they come together, they can survive. So I think certainly partnership, partnering, collaboration would be the way to go for quite a number of these. Of course, I would want to add to, and this is a reality check, we are seeing a movement, we are seeing a change, and not every business will survive. And one of the things that SMEs and any other business will have to be clear about is how far do you go down this runway? How far do you hemorrhage cash? Survival for you may just mean to reboot, to recalibrate, and to come with something different. And that will be your survival technique. But in the main, I would say collaboration would be the main way to go.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think it's very important, Rawle. That last comment you made was if you can't see the future, then it's probably the best thing to do right now is to close down and not continue to hemorrhage cash rather than trying to survive in an environment where it's just practically almost impossible.
Yes, I've had travel agents who have closed, but in doing so, they realized another advantage that they had. They were able to go into accommodation. You understand? But they did not see the opportunity because they were trying to hold on to this travel agency. Okay? So I think being real is one of the things that will help you survive.
I know in some countries around the world, businesses are being offering sort of a hand up by their governments. But for many of our Caribbean destinations, this is not a reality. I know in Anguilla, our banks have been giving us a bit of a break on mortgages and so on, but this doesn't answer the question about need to access funding to regroup. What are your thoughts?
And that's just the point I was making earlier. I am yet to see the data on how many or what percentage of SMEs are able to access the financing. I do know, for example, I have clients who've gone ahead, they've tried, but because of prior loan or prior debt, they haven't been able to access it because their books were not in order, because they had a tax liability. You understand? Some people weren't even registered. So this whole idea of capturing this large base of SMEs that are largely informal is a challenge for traditional financing. This is why I'm suggesting untraditional methods are required to take the sector forward.
Yeah, I think the hotel and tourism industry has not been one for public listings, etc. in the region, and there are a few worldwide. And I think that kind of public raising of funds may be one of the ways that, again, some of them will have to look at. And again, but to be able to access that kind of funding, you're going to need to consolidate how you do business going forward.
Are there any opportunities for crowdfunding online? Anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. Somebody just posted GoFundMe for SMEs, maybe it's an idea. But again, there are a lot of what I would want to say, initiatives like that. I'm not so sure how successful they have been in terms of raising the expected cash. And again, always, what's the return on investments? That's always a question people are looking at, right?
That's correct. Yes. Okay, let's delve a bit more back into the low touch, no touch service, using technology, but we may be eroding some of our traditional hospitality, personal touch. Does anybody have any further ideas they'd like to share on that? That we could still retain our unique Caribbean experience, utilizing technology, but capturing the very important value moments for the customer.
Well, I would just endorse that. I mean, it's the low touch note. I mean, it makes no sense to fight it. That's what's going to be the new normal. So I mean, we concentrate on the areas that we're good at, and to be Caribbean, hospitable Caribbean people providing top-notch services that people would want to come and experience. We all know it's not the sun, sand, and sea because that exists everywhere. So it's always been the people. That should not change. It's just that we have to. The jobs are going to change.
Right. I'm seeing a comment here from Richard Blades saying that we have to go high tech, high touch, where high touch will be defined as the experience that the end user has. Thank you for that comment, Richard.
Yeah, that's an excellent comment.
That's well said. That's well said. Yeah.
Richard, are you out there? Would you like to come online to share some input?
I am here. How you doing?
Hi.
Greetings to everyone. I've been quiet and just listening. Going through like a shared role, working extensively with the SMEs and the and entrepreneurs and all that sort of thing. What is happening as I'm going from this sector is I'm listening for how you access the funding. Because a lot of people know in this environment are experiencing a situation where expenses have risen, but they cannot increase their profit margins because of the fact that even though you have to put things like in the accommodation sector, like for example, air purifiers, increased sanitation for accommodations and all that sort of thing. You then have a situation where even though those increased costs, you still have to keep.
Not hearing Richard at all.
So therefore you're caught in a situation where you have to be creative with your investment. What have you
Yeah, Richard, we've lost you.
Now, are you hearing?
No, we didn't hear.
Okay,
What you said.
Yeah, Richard, Janine, I think we have to move to the next question because I think Richard is
still not hearing me.
Struggling with his audio.
I'm not. Wow. So I'm realizing I've got full bars, but for some reason it's not.
The reception is poor.
Ask PM Mayor that you need to invest in the upgrade.
Okay, Richard. Thank you for your contribution.
5G,
You definitely need 5G, Richard.
Okay. All right, let's get back a bit to entrepreneurship, Rawle.
Okay, I'll try my question.
Richard, I think we can take your comments in the chat because the overall connection is a bit difficult. Okay. All right, let's get back to talking a bit more about entrepreneurship, Rawle.
Sure.
We are naturally a very creative people, right? But with entrepreneurship comes a lot more than being creative and being willing to take risk. Do you think we need to prepare our people a bit more through training, through technical assistance? What are your thoughts on the support we can provide small businesses to be able to cope better in this environment?
Yes, I think it's a matter of how we set up the facility to reach the SME. There have been quite a number of programs across the region by each government, all right? All of them will complain about, at some point, access. In Trinidad and Tobago, for example, we have NEDCO, which is an entrepreneurship development corporation that seeks to assist SMEs in this way. But still, they too have a very low uptake. So really is, how do we design approaches to reach them? A couple of years ago, I recall the IDB developer program that teamed SMEs with larger organizations to access funding and technical assistance. I think programs like those can be duplicated. We can explore more of those things where these larger, medium-sized and larger provide mentorship, provide support, and they both access funding that helps both organizations, but the SME gets a hand up. So I believe creative approaches like those need to be put in place in addition to what many governments are attempting to do right now, all right? Some time ago in Trinidad and Tobago, we played with the idea of venture capital. I know in places like Jamaica, maybe Barbados, that has been tried, as well as angel investment. I think these avenues also can help to these SMEs to access the type of support that they need. It needs to be revisited, I'm saying.
Excellent. Now, Keith, I'm a small Caribbean firm. I don't have much access to funding right now, and I want to invest in technology, what I can get the most bang for my little buck. What are some of the ideas you would suggest that should be the first things that Caribbean businesses look at investing in terms of technology?
Well, I would say some of the first things that they should be looking at is back office support. I mean, how we do our business right now is, and the technology that I'm talking about is not new technology. It's just, you know, the way we've been traditionally doing business will change, and we have to take no advantage. So the availability of property management softwares and stuff like that to provide that as a service to the smaller business. The larger hotels will have that in place. So I mean, if I were in the Caribbean looking to invest in tech in the hotel tourism industry, that's where, as a service provider, a managed service provider, that's where I would invest. Now, once you're in there, then you can provide whatever service they need. You're going to be helping them with the automation, with the no touch, with the low touch, and that kind of thing. So, but that is where I would start. I mean, you'd help them to automate the things that they're doing manually today, and I'm sure there's opportunities for those right now in the Caribbean.
Excellent. Dave, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm just property management system. I'm sure most of these companies, smaller, large hotels, already have that. I want to ask Keith a question: how expensive it is to put in the keyless entries, for example, in some of the smaller properties, versus still having the keys and that kind of thing.
Well, in terms of cost, it's capital cost, right? Because you have to pretty much remove and replace all your locks. So the technology is not where the cost is. The cost is actually maybe changing your doors so that it can be electronized. Okay. So yeah, so that is what I would say cost that you would have refurbishing, that kind of thing. So that's where that kind of cost is.
Okay. No, I think we definitely, in terms of technology that one would want to employ now, apart from the property management system, I don't know that the smaller properties in particular would be able to do much more. Keith, again, you know, a question for you. Where would virtual reality, would that be something that smaller properties should engage in, should invest in order to bring guests, to get them to want to come to your properties?
All right. So it's marketing, right? So and Rawle was making that point that you have to do better marketing, and virtual reality is just another marketing tool, which would, if you have a small property, and I pay a software development company $10,000 to develop a virtual reality tour of my property, which I can now market online, and people with a VR device can take care of that. That would give me a leg up than my competitor down the street, because they know exactly what they're going to experience when they come there. In terms of marketing, you have to, when I said property management system earlier, just to follow up on that, it's not just the check-in, check-out, housekeeping kind of system. It's a customer relationship management, which all of these things can be subscription based. You don't have to invest in servers and software and all of that. You can pay $25 a month for every user and have access to some of the best systems that the biggest companies down the road are using.
So level for you. Okay, we'd like to invite Maria, who has her hand up. We'd like to invite Maria to unmute and share her contribution.
Hi, sure. Hi, everybody again. Two things related to Rawle's discussion, and one of the things is making sure that all of the entities involved in tourism doing what it needs to do come together with a single sense. The enabling environment, what is needed for the industry to pivot? How do we map those requirements and to make to make advocacy to our governments for the legislative environment that needs to be in place in order for a lot of properties, including, of course, small and medium enterprises, to do what they need to do. And that, you know, you for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, while tourism may have a different slant, we are seeing our creatives, for example, trying to make the pivot, use the technology and go online and so on and so forth. And they're having a lot of lag time because there isn't an enabling legislative environment that allows for them, for example, to access and use, you know, financial technology to get payment systems in place and so on. So that's one thing in terms of how to map it such that the legislators are aware of what is needed. The second point I would make in terms of entrepreneurship, just following on Rawle, is that where do you grow entrepreneurs, right? How do you gain an entrepreneur at tertiary level if you haven't practiced that sometime in the developmental period of the child? So it is, in a sense, again, making sure that if that is what we would like to achieve, how do we ensure that education at all levels seeks to develop that? There's a reason why a lot of our entrepreneurs are in the informal sector. And it is because in many ways, there's a disconnect between that agility that we are looking for in entrepreneurship and what is happening at the tertiary level in education, for example. So just to...
Yeah, Maria, I'd like to comment on the entrepreneurship, because it's something that, you know, I've often had these side discussions on. And one of the things, if you notice, the very wealthy people in the world, most of them do not have formal education at a very high level, to the example.
Absolutely.
Our education system is not geared towards entrepreneurship. It's geared towards schooling.
Yeah.
It's geared towards telling you what the norm is. And it tells you all about risk and not enough about the rewards.
Right.
And so as you become more educated and more schooled, you think about all the risks, all the things that could go wrong before you think about all the things you want to do right in order to make it work. And as you say, education, certainly ours in the Caribbean, needs a whole rethink in order to get entrepreneurship as part of our lifeblood.
Absolutely.
Yes, Maria, it's certainly a composite. So many factors. I think there's also the cultural factor. This whole idea of failure and how we see failure. I've been in other environments where you go to a business conference and you talk about a failure and you applaud it because they recognize failure as being part of that innovation process. So even that aspect of it, the culture, you look around and you count how many persons that you would know in your family involved in business, you know? So that's an aspect of it. But I think a big part of it as well is that SMEs have to show interest. They like I do work with the small accommodation organization in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's probably 10% of all the others that exist. They come around when they know for sure that there's some funding to get, and after that, they're not involved. And if they're not involved in their own advocacy, it's going to become difficult for government to take them serious. So for example, in our context in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have a fair number of how many of these accommodations exist. What is their revenue?
Yeah.
What is their employment like?
Yeah.
When you go to government asking for funds, therefore, there is going to be a gap. So SMEs have to take interest. And I want to put a plug here that we need more graduates involved as entrepreneurs. I want to encourage more graduates to get involved on the entrepreneurial end. And I think that's another way we're going to see some difference and movement in the sector.
Yep. Awesome. Excellent contribution, Maria, and also linking the whole education with entrepreneurship. Because I do agree with the other panelists in saying that our Caribbean education and the way it's structured and even the culture, it doesn't create innovation, it doesn't create diversity from the norm. And entrepreneurship does need this to survive. So we really have to look at all our education systems as well. And are we training persons to be a cog in a wheel, or are we training them to be disruptors or innovators? So that's definitely an area that we need to look into.
Indeed.
All right, okay, so we've had a wonderful, very dynamic conversation. I've had three fabulous panelists who have shared so much of their personal and professional insights. And I want to invite each of them to now share any parting remarks they may have as our time winds down. So who wants to start?
Yeah, well, since Keith batted number one, let me bat number one going out. Now, I think as we go post-COVID, just bear in mind where I started, that in 1900, the 1900s, century before this, we'd have thought the world would have been over. And look at where we're today, bigger and better. And so on the other side of this pandemic, we're going to be bigger, better, stronger. Technology is going to be more robust, and there are going to be opportunities. And we need to, as we go through this moment, this period, is to look for the opportunities in how we invest. And invest not only in physical infrastructure and property, etc., but how do we invest personally coming out of this pandemic.
Awesome.
I'll go next. I'll leave it for Keith to wrap up. But I'd just like to add, Janine, this has been a great experience, and I really love the interaction and the questions and the comments made by everyone. And I think it augurs well for the industry, for the sector, and for the Caribbean as a whole. I'd like to encourage all of us here to look at the SME sector as something that they themselves can invest in, whether you may be able to get into it yourself, or you may be able to support and fund other SMEs or come up with ideas. One of the things that we need to address is our business models. The day when I produce something and I give you it for money, those things are changing. There are different ways to earn money. And I'm sure Keith could go to town on all the various approaches that IT companies use to make money apart from extracting it from the main client. So we have to revisit our business model. We have to reimagine a new tourism sector, a new tourist, reimagining a new world, and we have to collaborate. We need all hands on deck. And I'll say too, it must be a multi-sector approach as well. For tourism to survive the new digital transformation, we need IT support. Thank you very much for being a part.
Well said. So Keith?
Yes, I'm more in my familiar role at the tail end of stuff. So, it was a pleasure being here in this discussion. Very germane to what is happening here in terms of, we're going through a pandemic. It is time that I think for players, large and small, to take a look at how technology can help them be better going forward. Now, when we talk about technology, I saw a quick note in the chat that says that technology needs to be demystified a little. But what we need to understand is not necessarily how the technology works, but how the technology can enable us to be successful. I mean, we'll leave the inner workings of the technology to people like me and people on my team. But from the people in this forum, what we have to try to learn to do is to say how the technology can help us. All the technology that I spoke about when you were asking in the Q&A are technology that has been available for 5 to 10 years, and it's now that it was seen that it was just for the larger people with deep pockets. It's no longer like that. I encourage if you have SME owners in the audience to look at to say how technology can help me, because it certainly can. Once again, Janine, it was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much
for participating. And thank you, Janine.
I would like to say a big thank you to our panelists, to our organizers, to our listening audience. This has really been an awesome experience, this entire conference. And we want to really, I think, capture this and I would say magnify it and also make it bigger and make it more sustainable. This connection between all the CHTM graduates is nothing we should take for granted. We are a powerful resource of information, connections, networks, hope, inspiration, and ideas. And I definitely commend the organizing committee for doing all this hard work to bringing us together. And I hope that we can sustain this and continue to fuel this into another powerful energy experience, which will help us all and help the Caribbean. So I want to thank you for the opportunity and welcome Karen to take back over the reins.
Yeah, and as Karen comes in, I want to echo those sentiments, Janine, because and just say to Dr. McLeod that we need to find some way to ensure that CHTM in some form or format continues, because it is a collaboration and an opportunity among us all that has really helped to grow the Caribbean, and will continue to grow it. And it'd be a massive travesty to have our organization or our school not to continue.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that, Dave, and thank you so much, Janine. Fantastic third session. I mean, today has really been amazing, way above anything we could have hoped for. Thank you all so much for participating and for giving of your time today, and thank you to all the contributors to session 3. We will take a